Hello and welcome back to Seaside Garage. This is a car. This is my Citroën Mehari project that I started quite a while ago now. There is a playlist on this project as well. I will link that in the description because that is also a while ago. So if you are new to the channel, you might want to watch that before watching this. But I have changed the frame. I have painted the axles. And currently I am in the process of fixing up the spring pods. They were rusted pretty badly at the ends, so I have cut the ends off and welded new ends back on, cleaned up the inside and painted them. You can buy them new, but it's a lot easier to just fix them. And these are really durable. It's just the rust that is the problem. All I need to do before they are ready is to inject some vegetable oil in there to make them squeak free. You can't just use any oil because it will eat that material, that sliding material that is on the cups itself. But I also need to take a look at the engine. That over there is the engine. And what I would like to do in this video is to just fire it up shortly, just to make sure that it works, then make a compression test. And then I think I will take it apart and change all the gaskets because they almost always leak from the push rod tubes. They might not do it straight away, but after a bit of driving on an old engine, they almost always leak. But what I'm going to do now is to take the engine and put it on my lift, strap it down, and then we can take a look at it and hopefully fire it up. So here we have the engine on the engine stand. And I totally adore this engine because it's so simple, compact, and easy to work on once you get to know them, of course. And it's not a fast engine, not at all, but the 2CV and the Citroën Meharis are not heavy cars, so especially the Meharis doesn't feel slow, I think. And neither does the 2CV considering the amount of horsepower, in my opinion. You can actually keep up with traffic okay-ish, nothing fancy though. But this is the entire engine together with the gearbox and the front part of the braking system. So this is, and I put it up here. Well, I lowered the lift, but I lifted it to this place, and it's heavier than what you should lift, I would say, but it's possible, which tells you how light this engine actually is. The versions without drum brakes are a lot easier to lift. The drums are really heavy. 2CVs are using discs in here instead of drums, but the Mehari uses drums, and also some of the older 2CVs are using drums. The system is very clever, and you have everything in here, so you don't have any braking stuff out in the actual wheel well, which is pretty cool. I think Alfa Romeo also used that system. This with the drums, it's especially nice because it's encapsulated in here. I have had issues with the disc setups on 2CVs because if you have an oil leak up here, you will get oil on your disc and it won't really brake very well. But other than that, it's a clever system. So this right here is the gear selector. This one goes on a rod into the cabin where, if you know a 2CV, you will know the umbrella kind of gearing. It's very simple yet very efficient. The gearbox is a 4-speed. Normally they are pretty reliable in my opinion. The reverse gear tends to go loose if you use the reverse gear hard, like reversing up hills with a lot of power. You shouldn't do that. It comes apart in the back end, but yeah. I don't think I'm going to do much to the gearbox because I hope it will be all right. I might just open up the cover and check the inside and just clean it out a bit. But other than that, I won't really know if it's good before I get it into the car, but I presume it is, because especially Meharis normally does not have a lot of miles on them. And up here we got the engine, 2 cylinders, air-cooled engine with an oil cooler. We got the oil cooler right up there, so it's happy to stay almost at the limit all day pretty much. It's not really having a hard time being driven hard. So in that regard, the engine is designed a little bit like a race engine. But it's developing 29 horsepower in this setup. I think you can get them to 32, but 29 is this at least. Out here, you have the valve assembly, and this is where you adjust the valves, which is an important thing to do on the 2CVs. got one on each side. The engine is, as you can see, a flat twin, completely flat. It uses twin spark system, or wasted spark system it's called. So you only have one coil, and it's just firing when the piston is at top dead center, and also when it is at the bottom end, because then the other one is at the top dead center. So it's very simple. What I want to do is to just fire this up to see if it fires, and I would like to do a compression test also. And then I think I will take it apart and just renew all the gaskets and so on. But I'm not going to go crazy, because I actually want to, even though I already spent a lot of money on the Mehari, I am going to try to keep the cost a little bit down from here on out. Otherwise it will be a money pit. So I will try to reuse as much as possible of this. I can see I missed some parts. For instance, this is a part of the exhaust, but also a part of the heating system that takes air from the hot exhaust, and not from in the side, but outside of the hot exhaust, and leads it into the cabin, because we don't have any coolant to use as heating source. But that part of it is missing over here, so I need to find one. That's not going to be a problem, I think, because there is a lot of these engines lying around. But what I want to do is to firstly attach some timing gear, because it's missing. I got a new set over there, or used set over there. To work on these engines is almost like working on a big moped engine, because it is so simple in its setup. In here we got the points. I'm just going to put the timing roughly correct, because I don't think it will matter that much for just trying to fire it up. But if I wanted to run really nice, I would of course have to set it correctly. Like that. Then we have that, and this one goes to the negative on the coil. Like that. So let's just remove the spark plugs to check for spark. And also just to check that the engine spins. Looking very dry, but other than that, it's okay. Yeah, it's pretty much the same. Like that. There we go. Now comes the exciting bit of actually finding out if the engine spins over, because I simply can't remember if I checked that before. Oh, the hand crank is really worn. Oh yeah, but it does spin. It's not the hand crank that is worn, it's the wheel itself. It's sort of split out. So it doesn't really fit that well. But it's spinning, and that's good enough. Let's try to fit a battery, because that way we can figure out if it sparks. Here we go. And the negative is actually already there. And the positive is here. That goes to this part of it. Now I want to make sure that it's in neutral, because otherwise it will actually try to drive on the drums. And I will also strap it down. So I'm just going to disconnect it again really quick. And then I'm going to fit a connector down here at the positive, which will go to the positive on the ignition coil, like so. To begin with, I'm just going to fit one spark plug lead, like that. Then I'm going to take my remote starter. But before fitting that and going any further, I'm just going to disconnect it for now. I'm just going to remove the air cleaner, because remember, it's a mantra that I'm trying to learn myself. Never start up an engine before you know if something is in the intake. So I'm going to remove the air filter assembly because that will be I will have to remove that anyhow for the rebuild, and then I can look into the car. Like so. Okay, so the throttle is closed, so nothing has come in here. It is a little bit rusty underneath there. I don't think we have any issues with something in here. I'm gonna chance it. So let's go ahead and fit the battery again. The remote starter, one end goes to the positive terminal on the battery, and the other one goes to the signal wire on the starter solenoid, like that. And like this. So when I press this button, it should spin, and it should spark up here if the spark system is, or the ignition system is working. Let's just try. Oh yeah, and the starter seems to work. Yeah. It's always exciting to try to film sparking spark plugs because the frame rate could make it difficult to see, but take a look at this. Yeah, you can see it. We got spark. Let's do a compression test just for fun. And then we can maybe do one later when we have fired it up. So I actually got two identical compression gauges. So I have hooked both of them up. Let's see what they show when I press the button. Now I only have one compression gauge. The other one is currently broken. Do we think that I can just fix it by putting it back together? The issue was that I hadn't clicked it into the quick connector. So the positive thing is that there was actually compression. Let's pretend it never happened. I will just cut it out of the video. So I happen to have two of these compression gauges, which seems to be working just fine. I've never dropped them or anything. So I can test both of them at the same time, which would be a little bit interesting. So let's try that. Okay, we got horrible compression. We got no compression on this one, and quite horrible compression on the other one. It's understandable because there's most likely no oil in there. I should maybe just add some oil, but it's a little bit worrying that no compression on this one. I'm not completely worried about this just yet because, as mentioned, these are most likely dry, and I have actually, to be honest, I should have put some oil in there before trying to crank them. But I've tried before to have 2CVs with almost no compression until they build oil pressure. And I'm not sure it has that yet. There is oil in this engine. It's old, but there is oil in there. But let's just add some oil. And also I'm going to rig up my DVOM to the oil test line. Then that should show power, and it does. That should show around 0 if the engine produces oil pressure. So let's try to spin it and see if we can make it do that. Yeah, it's not showing 12 anymore. Now it's back. So it's not showing 0, it's showing milliamps. But it is going away from 12, which tells me that the light would go out. I should actually just use a test lamp. But believe it or not, I can't find one. We're having around 60 psi on one side and pretty much 0 at the other side. And a pretty weak battery. I'm just going to change battery because it could be part of the reason. Let's try with a fresh one. Let's see how much faster it will spin. That's worse. Okay, we have a problem in this engine because it's just gotten really tight. Like really, really tight. But these engines are very simple to rebuild, and if it needs a rebuild, that was just going to happen. But what is worrying me is that it was spinning easy to begin with, and now it's tightened up badly. So that was a bit of a bummer. There's no going around the fact that this engine is coming apart. It was anyway to clean it up, but now it's going to be for some more serious work. What I just hope is that the crank assembly is all right, because if that is all right, it's not a big deal to change the piston and the barrels. There's something wrong, and I'm pretty sure that me trying to start it has made that a lot worse. I'm interested to see what it is, but anyway, what we're going to do now is to strip this engine. We're not going to try to start it. We're going to strip it down and see what we actually got to work with on this one. I'm actually really looking forward to seeing what's wrong with it. This is just the valve cover for one side. There should be oil in there. There is. There's also what looks like either water. Oh, I think I know why this engine is not very good. There's been water in this engine. Ugh. Yeah, this looks a lot better on this side. A lot better. So that tells me that maybe one of the valves was open over there, leading in some air with moisture. So it's most likely the exhaust valve that is open. These normally comes apart very easy. These up here normally does not come apart very easy. Let's try to see if it's the same today. Yeah, that was pretty easy. Also, this one. Yeah, that's not going to be easy. Yeah, it came loose. Amazing. Yeah, that one just snapped. No surprise. Well, I'm just going to continue the strip down until it gets a little bit exciting. Very often the cylinder head takes the barrel with it. I would like to see if I could just carefully crack the seal loose so it only take off the cylinder head to begin with, just for fun. But I might think that will be impossible. Oh, there we go. Just need to get the push rod out also without dropping them. They are really nice push rods on a 2CV engine made of aluminum. Really nice. It's actually a pretty advanced engine. Take a look at these. Nice. Other than some oily crap in here, it's not too bad. But in here though, this is just some oily soot. I think it would just have burned. But anyway, it's not a great thing to have in your piston. I'm just having these in place so that I can draw the piston backwards until it hits those at least. Does that right there. Ah! It's free. Jesus, that was tough to do. Okay, so it's apparently a snapped oil control ring that made it. I have really no idea why though. You can see the scratch down there, and then on the oil control ring, right at my finger, it's snapped. I'm more inclined to believe that some kind of hard material was forced past it. But there's nothing on the top of the piston and there's nothing on the compression rings. But there's no doubt when you look at the inside of the barrel that we have quite a big issue right there. It's going all the way, almost all the way up. And that corresponds to this area right there. This must have occurred while I tried to start it because it wasn't stuck to begin with. But something must have shifted in here, or maybe that control ring just snapped, I don't know. There's nothing wrong with the top piston rings. But well, this is going to be a complete engine rebuild, but I'm not sure it's going to be this engine just yet. I will have to take the rest of the engine apart and check the crankshaft and the bearings and so on in there before I decide whether to rebuild this engine or get another one. Because this, even though it's piston and barrels, it's not a huge deal on these engines because it's not that expensive and it's pretty easy to fit and change. You can actually do it with the engine in the car, which is really nice. I have done it before on a 2CV. And it's really nice. Also, it's very popular to choose the bigger pistons. I'm not going to do that because it's not going to be a racer anyway, but it's just fun. But yeah, that whole control ring is really loose. I'm just going to try to remove it and see. It's right there that it's right here that it's deformed and snapped. So, thanks for watching this video. It's nice to be back working on the Mehari for the first time in a long time. I am struggling a bit with the motivation on this one because I have done all this before. But I miss driving a Mehari, so that is keeping me going at least. But next video on the Mehari will be the rest of the strip down and the assessment of this engine. If it's worth anything, it's looking a little bit nasty in there. Well, but I'm just going to have to wait and see. Otherwise, I'll have to find another engine. Maybe even just a running engine that I can fit in. Yeah. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one.